Welcome to Do You Like Scary Movies? Where we examine all things horrific. Each episode features interviews with those involved in all aspects of horror and the bizarre. Do you like creepy movies, scary books, or horror music? Join us for a look into all of the things that go bump in the night and bring a chill to your spine. Prepare to be scared.
All right, here we are. One more time. I keep saying that, and I don't mean it.
Second time tonight for us.
That's true. If we, before we start this, let's do the introductions here. So, I am Brian, Rocky Mountain Paranormal Guy, co-host of this here podcast, also co-host of the They Did It Conspiracy podcast, and an upcoming podcast that you'll be finding more about very soon. That being said, I will pass it over to Bob.
That would be me. Also with Rocky Mountain Paranormal, a YouTube channel called Phobophile. Not on the They Did It podcast, but I will be involved with the other one that we keep teasing, and at some point we'll actually tell you all about.
That's true.
Lots of exciting things.
But we have an actual, as they say these days, in-studio guest. So for those people that don't know who you are you? Introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Jimmy Drain. I am with a company called ThunderKnight Entertainment, which is my company. It's a production company, and we produce films, music videos, documentaries, that kind of thing. So
Good times.
That is me. Good times.
Film anything for $1.
Anything.
Anything you
Like
say.
a whole host for production companies. $1 a scoop.
Exactly. No, I get it. I'm right there with you. So, all that being said, what films are you currently working on? What do you got going on?
The first feature film that we've completed is it's an anthology film called Realm of Shadows, and it's kind of my creep show. And it's an anthology of reality horror type thriller stories. And it's got a pretty good horror cast if we're kind of concentrating on horror people, horror names in that sense. And the second film I'm finishing up right now is called Professor Kimmer's Initiation, which is an interesting title, but it's
I was going to say
I like the title.
collegiate thriller about a young professor who gets seized by a clandestine group of witches in a college.
Cool.
It's pretty cool.
Professor of what?
You know what? He's an ethics professor.
Okay.
Of all things.
Okay.
Yeah, and we just blasted the trailer, but his ethics are in question because he's having an affair with one of the students, and he doesn't really quite know she's a witch. And by the time the whole thing's over,
I never knew your screenwriter had met my ex.
that's when you found out about it. That's what happened. And then the last one we're trying to get off the ground here soon is called The Dead Rose, and that's the big one that we've been trying to get off the ground about a young man who infiltrates a satanic cult, really.
Cool.
And he's thrown into a world where his faith is tested and all of that interesting things. But Realm of Shadows is the feature that will hit platforms pretty much any time now.
I was just going to say, how far along are they, and when can people see them?
Realm of Shadows got picked up by a company called Safier Entertainment, and they are a Emmy award-winning distribution company. They like this kind of genre, and it could actually be this month or August.
Oh, cool.
We're having platforms hit, and then we'll have a screening for it. But that's kind of the one that kicks it off, and also kind of prefigures the other two films.
Cool. Do you know which platforms they're getting it onto?
I hope the best possible. They've gotten films into Regal Theaters before, which is pretty
nice.
good. Oh. So we're looking at the essentials, the Amazons and the Hulus and like that. But hopefully a good assortment of platforms. We will see.
Sounds promising.
They're in the selling process.
Well, and right now is a good time because indie films are really going out to theaters, which is kind of an unusual thing. Unrated and everything.
It's possible.
They've finally seen the light.
Yep. Thanks, Damien.
Or the darkness.
Exactly.
They've seen the darkness. That's what we're hoping. We have Tony Todd is the star of the film, and he's obviously the Candyman. And then Vernon Wells, who's a great villain, cinematic villain, is in it, and some up and comers. But Yeah, I mean, horror's on the rise. It's not going away.
Oh, absolutely. So, out of your filmmaking, what was your first foray into the film world?
As an actor, started out as an actor. So, just started to do indies and shorts, and my first feature film as an actor was in Boulder. And, that was my film school after just being on set and watching the crew and learning the story process and falling in love with it. Then I really started to embark on the films that I wanted to do with the short film version of The Dead Rose, which is the big one we're trying to get off the ground. So that's the one that deals with the occult and, the clashes of religions in that sense.
All kind of interesting stuff.
It's so much fun because depending on who we talk to, they have absolutely no experience in filmmaking. Mm-hmm. They went to school for it. Mm-hmm. They've been in the field forever and decided they wanted to do something independent. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's all over the map.
It is.
But they're all getting it done, and I think that's the important part.
That's it. That's the most important thing. I learned just by the craft of acting, but you learn so much by watching everyone around you.
Oh, absolutely.
So with those to my
watch people who know what they're doing.
Uh-huh.
And then try it, and you'll fuck it up anyway. But you'll learn from your mistakes, and eventually you'll do some really good stuff.
Oh yeah. I've made a few little short 10-minute doozies that were not that great. They will remain nameless.
Well, but hats off to anybody that has witnessed filmmaking and still wants to do it.
No kidding.
Because that's kind of rough. We were just talking to somebody a while ago about it, and their biggest thing was, okay, we're done filming, everything's ready to go, and oh my god, I've just made this puzzle of all these things I have to put together.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And there's another one that I've been working on, and they're shooting out in the woods, and they seem to keep getting hailstorms and things and having to reschedule everything.
Oh, yeah.
It's just all the things that can go wrong when you have that many moving parts.
Amazing things can happen too. In the short film version of The Dead Rose, the big execution satanic ritual scene takes place around a well. It was supposed to be around a well. And so I built my own little well out of a trash can and paper mache, and we had getting ready to shoot, and the sun was going down. The well broke. But and about 20 yards away in the location we were at, there were some gentlemen taking down a big wall structure at the time with real stones, and they asked if we needed help with them, and out of the blue, we had a well.
Nice.
So things like that can happen too, which are pretty amazing.
That is a good thing.
Yeah.
So how's production time been for you? That's something I've seen in indie filmmaking, that it just takes forever.
It does take forever. Unless you are given a boatload of money to begin with, and then you don't throw it away or misuse it, it's going to take time. Realm of Shadows is probably about a 8 to 9 year segment of anthology films. Professor Kimmer's Initiation is about a 3.5 year ordeal, and I've already started to film The Dead Rose. Eric Roberts, the Academy Award nominee, has got a small role in it. But unless we're working on Hollywood budgets, these things take time. And that's probably what also can make people a little bit afraid to pursue independent films. That fact.
Well, and I keep saying it, but I'll say it again. With all the dedication, with all the time, the fact that you can finish it. Because so many end up on a hard drive somewhere that you'll never see it again.
Yeah.
With reasonable names in it, too.
Sure.
What was the name of the film? The Horror Geek just did an episode on it.
I haven't seen his recent episode.
It is
which I should apologize for, because he's been on the podcast.
Yeah.
If he's listening, I'm not ignoring. I'm just busy.
I watch them all the minute they roll out. It had Eileen Dietz and Roddy Piper.
Oh, wow.
And a few other reasonable names. Lead singer from Korn. And this thing, it got a rough edit. They did all sorts of promotional materials for it. They showed the rough cut at some con. Everybody showed up and did a big signing for it, and it vanished.
Wow.
Nobody even knows where it is.
Huh.
And
You wonder how many How many there are out there like that?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm like,
There's tons of them.
It's like Ed Wood stuff, like the lost tapes.
Oh,
I mean, I feel
absolutely.
like probably relatively few get to that point where it's been even with a rough edit screened for an audience. I think there are tons of them that are still on the SD cards in somebody's camera, and and that's just as far as it's ever going to
They'll
get.
just die there.
It's kind of like, some of the, there's got to be a whole boatload of great scripts out there that will never be made, and
Oh, absolutely.
kind of the same thing.
Which is what kills me about Hollywood. It's like, okay, we're going to remake this. Do you know how many, writer's strike aside, do you know how many writers there are out there that would absolutely pretty much give their scripts to these places just to have it made?
Sure.
And no, we're going to remake this movie for the third time or fourth time.
It's kind of why, the whole system out there is imploding on itself.
It is.
Well, I think that's part of why the indie guys are on the rise.
Exactly.
And they're getting the theatrical releases because, well, Regal and AMC have sort of realized what the audiences want to see.
Well, that, and what do I want to pay for the rights to? Do I want to pay the rights to a movie that is a $500 million movie that's trying to make back its budget and it's a remake of something and people don't want to see it?
Yeah.
Or do I want to bring in something that cost $200,000 to make, is probably better, has better writing? The money is there.
And it's what the audience wants because
Exactly.
it's not just the same thing over again.
Right. And, the horror genre, I almost feel like the horror genre is creeping up on a stage where there'll be the same routine horror films that are being made all the time, and then the unique ones are going to pop out and truly get an audience. Just because everyone's trying to do horror now, and everyone's trying to do Ouija board films, or the zombie craze kind of died down a little bit, but or the slasher film.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But horror will always be popular.
We go to a lot of sneak previews.
Yeah.
And outside, there's always studio reps going, so what did you think about the movie and all this? I'm not bringing up the name of the movie. It may have made you smile. But the studio reps out there and like, so what did you think? I said, well, you got a hit on your hands. It's a cookie cutter. I've seen it.
Yeah.
In
I liked
pieces.
it.
It was okay. It
Sure.
was palatable. It entertained me for 90 minutes. But
Better than most.
exactly. But then I've had the other problem. We went to one. Did you see Last Night in Soho?
No.
Brilliant film. Just
Check it
it's
out.
artwork to watch. And then
And not exactly horror, but I don't know what else to call
it's
it.
horror adjacent.
Yeah.
But we saw
Dark
that.
fantasy, maybe.
We saw that one night, and I was just blown out of the water.
Right.
Then the next night, we went to see Antlers. And they said, so, coming out, what did you think? And I was like, I am so skewed by that last movie, I can't give you an honest answer. Because it was so good, and this was... It was okay.
It was fine. Yeah, it was fine. It was a good horror movie,
Yeah.
but
The other
it's
one,
not
the
going
other
to be a
stole
classic.
thunder.
Yeah.
Yeah, my current review of most movies is, well, it's exactly what it should have been. It's not great. It's not good. It's just...
It wasn't a game changer like the original Night of the Living Dead or something
Exactly.
like that. Yeah, which just came out of nowhere and took some time to gather traction, but just blew up.
Well, and that's the thing, being able to find that spark that you
Yeah.
need to find that weird one. But
Well, and I think it's even getting harder these days because we have now had
So
Night
many.
of the Living Dead and The Exorcist and The Thing and all of these revolutionary classics, and it's getting harder and harder to come up with the new idea.
That's the challenge.
And the audiences have gotten fairly jaded.
well, and I will say
Yeah.
that Netflix specifically has something that's really starting to annoy me. It's so many people haven't been able to finish this film. It's absolutely the most terrifying thing of the year. And I go watch it, and it's like,
It's fine.
It's
Yeah.
okay.
The first one I saw them do that with was Veronica,
Yeah, I was about to say it was.
which is a very much above average horror movie.
It was.
I liked it quite a lot.
Yeah.
but I have seen every horror movie in the world. This is not going to keep me up at night.
Yeah.
Well, and they're currently doing that with Run Rabbit Run.
Mm-hmm.
And have you seen it?
I haven't yet.
Have you seen it?
I haven't, no.
I watched it the other day, and it's exactly what it needed to be. I mean, but I do not understand why people say that they're, running out of the film, because it's mostly psychological. It's a real slow burn. It felt kind of A24-ish.
I think the real answer might be when people stop it, that was when they paused it to go off and visit the necessary rather than being too scared. They just paused it.
Well, that or being psychological horror, I think a lot of it is I just can't get into this, and they stop it, and everybody's stopping it right about the same time, so they're like, oh, people are turning this off because they're so afraid.
Sure.
Like, they're not afraid, they're just, it's not the film for them.
Although, speaking of film hype, I did hear one that has me fairly, let's say, cautiously optimistic.
They already did Showgirls, too.
No, but the it's not even marketed as horror, although for sure there's horror elements, but the new Oppenheimer movie.
Yes.
I have heard that a lot of people are walking out of the early screenings because it's so heavy and so disturbing.
Interesting.
I want to see it, and it's strictly, I want to see it because of the story, but it is strictly from a filmmaker standpoint that I want to see the film.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know about the special film they made for the movie?
No.
Because he is a director diva, I believe is the word that I'm looking for. Wanted to shoot it on IMAX cameras. 70 millimeter IMAX film. Each frame is, I think, 6 times the size of a normal 70 millimeter frame. It's huge. Yeah. But he insisted that the flashback footage be shot on black and white. And they were like, you can film it in color and scan it and convert it. And he's like, no. So Kodak actually did R&D and made a special black and white IMAX film for that film.
Which could pave the way for 5 independent films for that, just that level.
Oh, absolutely. I can't imagine how much that cost. But I'm kind of a film nerd anyway. And I mean that in both ways. Both movies and the
actual film
itself, having worked for Kodak. And it's like, I need to go see that just to see what it looks like. But now I can only go see it at a true IMAX because everybody else has a digital projection of it.
Yeah, sure, it's going to look beautiful.
Yeah, and the IMAX you see at most of the theaters is not really IMAX.
No,
it's a big screen.
Yeah.
He's a great storyteller anyway, so I'm sure he's going to do really well with that.
It will be brilliant.
We were talking about it today, or from my friends of mine the other day were talking about how, like, in general, people have now taken things like the Ouija board or the reality of the devil, and it's been so mythified in independent film that it's now people have T-shirts on all the time. There's nothing wrong with that. Just the fact that it's not. How can we scare people again? And that's
exactly.
Bring it back to that element. There's an element in Realm of Shadows that we did a long distance exorcism, which I haven't seen before, but it's based off a true story of a family mentor of ours who was a martial arts teacher who was a police officer at the time, and they had to do an exorcism from about 100 yards away on a ritual. And they just concentrated on keeping the fire from being lit. So I tried to throw that in, and then a little element into Realm of Shadows about keeping... it's interesting. So, it's that kind of stuff that I think filmmakers will have to do to kind of keep the tip of the wick on fire, so to speak.
I think one of the things that we're going to see come back is the slow burn psychological horror film.
Yeah.
Because we have been jump scared to death.
Sure.
And they do have their place.
Oh, absolutely. A good place jump scare is amazing.
Exorcist 3.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There was the one scene in what was it, the Midnight Club? Where it holds the Guinness Book of World's Records for the most jump scares in one scene. There's like 27 jump scares in less than a minute. It just, every time something happens.
Right.
But it worked.
It works, yeah. That's all if it works.
Exactly. But it's going to take a change of the audience, too, because if you watch today's younger crowds coming out of theaters and they go see, like, a screening of The Exorcist, like, that was boring.
Yeah.
Because they aren't in it for the psychology of it. They're in it to just have something jump out at them and scare them.
Maybe that's where the old Hitchcock approach will come in, you know, the waiting for the jump instead.
Absolutely.
And that's never going to get old. So, yeah, I mean, that's definitely got to come back. I agree with you. I mean, the Jaws jump scares were great. And I think ever since then in Psycho, people have been trying to emulate that.
Yeah.
Hard to do.
Well, and I mean, James Wan, you know, great.
Yeah.
That's his gig, and he's really good at it.
The jump scares.
But
the jump laughs, that's what we need to bring back to horror. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, the thing of it is, if you're trying to actually scare someone, a jump scare is not scary, it's startling.
Yeah.
Sure.
A jump scare breaks the tension. It does not build the tension. The jump scare is the release at the end. It's not the actually scary part.
Sure.
The one that I'm having fun with right now is watching a lot of the indie horror makers where you know there's a jump scare coming. They build up to it and build up to it, and you're like, okay, and next scene. And it's like, hold on a minute. I was all tensed up for nothing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the opposite of a jump scare, but it works.
Yeah.
So,
like you said, it's psychology. It's true.
Yeah, someday we're going to get some decent psychological horror out there again.
Yeah. But,
I mean, it's a mix, too, because you can have psychological slasher.
It's, I think, harder to do, but it can be done.
Oh, definitely. I mean, we've had 2 films about film crews following around serial killers. And they've been really good.
Wasn't necessarily a slasher movie, but it was so well done. It was Zodiac.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what we're talking about there. You know, the slow build-up, suspense was wonderfully done.
Well, The Exorcist.
Yeah.
The first 15 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, nothing really happened.
Nothing happened. It was all character building.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, you know, by the time that something happened, you cared about this family. And now, I watch a lot of people reviewing current slashers, and they're like, it would have helped if I would have cared about these characters, but you can just kill them off one by one, and I just don't care.
And sometimes
you need
fine,
Saw.
you know. Yeah. Disposable teenagers in the woods is fine.
Exactly.
It's just, it's not really scary. It's a different kind of a thing.
It is. Well, it is, yeah. And I think young filmmakers, are going to have to try and usurp that knowledge somehow. But one doesn't know until you show an audience, and that's where the test is.
Yeah.
I've been through that.
Yeah, the best laid plans of mice and men.
Yeah.
Something first screening. I don't know.
And the scene in Unforgiven where they find Morgan Freeman in the coffin at the end, that wasn't a jump, but it was pretty startling. Things like that. Elements like that.
Well, that's a big thing for me is, even if it's not a jump scare, in fact, preferably something more substantial than just a jump scare, but can you actually give me something that surprises me?
Yeah.
Because horror ought to be somewhat surprising.
Right.
But I have seen, I don't know how many thousands of horror movies. Tens, hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
You know, I've lost count. I lost count 20 years ago, you know? Yeah. It takes a lot to surprise me. So that's the sort of the thing I'm always looking for is, can you surprise me? I mean, for most important, just tell a good story. But then can you surprise me? And the one that I've never seen, can you actually scare me enough that I want to, sleep with the lights on?
Yeah.
I've never found that one.
I like, I'm trying to tap into the horror action genre, and there's not many guys who can do it, but, the movie Apocalypto is one of those movies where it can be horrific at times.
That'll screw with your mind a little bit.
So good. And what I guess one of the reviews I saw for it was Mike Nichols, who said, he loved it when he wasn't hiding behind his chair, like dodging an arrow or something.
Well, I think one of the people that initially got it, at least, M. Night Shyamalan. I mean, it was a different thing. He came up with this just off-the-wall twist in all of his movies, and they worked.
Some of them.
Eventually, it fell apart. But
First 3 did pretty good.
they did. And honestly, Knock at the Cabin, it was not the book, but it was good.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the thing, is you've got to have that thing that's unexpected. He nailed it with these weird twists.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Where I don't know. It's
Well, and the other thing is, if you look at some of his work, he didn't overdo it with the special effects. He didn't show you too much of whatever was going on.
He was great at that.
No.
Yeah.
You've got, I'm thinking of Signs.
Signs
You've
of
got
Real.
like that one frame where you see the alien for,
Yep.
for just a second. And that scare is going to carry you through the whole movie.
well, and if they did show it was in silhouette.
Yeah. And the Night of the Living Dead homages were nice in that.
Oh,
With the boarding up the windows
Yeah.
and the sounds. That was
I'm a
really good.
huge. All of the Living Dead films, those are just phenomenal.
Oh, amazing.
And
Day of the Dead, underrated, great masterpiece in my opinion.
all of them.
The first one, I mean, is the best, but
It-
in my opinion.
it's the classic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
And the remake, it had Tony in it. How bad could it
Yeah.
be?
Mr. Todd, yeah,
I
did a
mean,
good job.
that-
He beat out Lawrence Fishburne for that role,
Really,
which was interesting to me.
I can't imagine Lawrence in that.
Yeah,
Tony, and I'll share a Tony story, because I have never seen anybody so unegotistical. I talked to him a few years ago now, and it was about doing just some narration. I was talking to him at a con, and I'm like, "So do you do voiceovers and stuff like this?" He's like, "I don't have the voice for that." What?
what? Yeah,
I was like, "Tony, have you listened to yourself?" And he didn't think that he had it. I'm like, "You've got the voice."
he's got a great voice. Yeah, it's booming and it's powerful.
Oh, it is. I mean, he's an intimidating guy when you first meet him.
Yes.
Then he's just a nice guy after you meet him. But
I got to drive him back to the airport, and it was a real nice talk. And it was nice to hear him have really good scruples about life in general.
oh, he
Kind of lecturing what actors had to do in the past, which was if you had to pass out your headshots in his day, and when he started, he had to go walk up 10 flights of stairs to drop off headshots
Yep.
before emails and stuff. So he was kind of lecturing me on that, which is totally understandable.
Well, and I can't say he was an overnight sensation, but he has had a really good career now.
Oh yeah.
Not that Candyman had anything to do with that, but
For sure. No, yeah, he's awesome, and he is kind of intimidating when you meet him, but the gentle giant for sure.
he really is. And we kind of talked about that earlier, of horror people in general, not just the stars, but the stars as well, are the most down-to-earth, friendly, happy people you will ever meet.
Yeah.
I know I was talking to a guy that runs a horror convention, and I was like, yeah, horror people are just the best. He's like, really? I haven't really dealt with that many. I'm like, yeah, they are. Not too long ago, he's like, you were right. These people are just amazing. They're just so friendly and
Yeah.
such good people.
It's those comedy people that are the crazy ones.
Well, and I've dealt with stars from other, types of film.
Yeah.
It's a completely different thing.
Mm-hmm.
They have to have the green M&Ms and can't be looked at
Yeah.
directly in the eye.
Caramel macchiato.
Yeah.
It's different for every genre. But yeah, I've never had a bad experience with any of my horror contacts. They've all been real nice. Another real nice man is Ken Foree.
Yep.
He's kind of a, I don't know, he's not a doppelganger of Tony, but they are very similar.
Yeah.
Both very cool. Tony's a little bit more menacing to me in that in his performances, just his voice. But Ken's got that all around good, strong quality. He's an awesome guy.
He does. Yeah, I met him a couple of times. He's a really nice guy.
Vernon Wells is also kind of intimidating before you meet him, but once you meet him, he's a real nice guy, a real teddy bear.
Well, and all of it's like the more horrible of a killer they are in a movie, the nicer they are.
Yeah. He's got a presence. His character in The Road Warrior was once in a lifetime, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely has a screen presence as a villain, but he just learns he's a great actor, knows how to turn it on.
I mean,
same with Tony.
I'll say horrible serial killer. But David Howard Thornton is just the nicest guy you would ever want to meet.
Crazy, that's funny.
He's just such a nice guy.
That's what's frightening about it, kind of.
Yeah, but out of costume, you wouldn't know it. And I mean, even like Jed Rowan.
Kane Hodder,
another great. Kane is just the friendliest, happiest guy in the world. He's everybody's best friend, and then he'll kill you in a sleeping bag against a tree. It's just
that's funny.
He is just, but they're all like that. It's just so amazing that
I still want somebody, and it's going to have to be like Elon Musk or somebody with that kind of money to just buy the rights to all of them and do a slasher movie with just all of them.
One collection.
One big one.
Yeah.
It would be interesting. Maybe,
it would be like my entire childhood come to life.
Candyman. There's a video game out there like that. It's like Street Fighter 2 for
the
people.
I've completely forgotten the title of it, but I know what you're talking about.
Candyman can fight like Pinhead. It's kind of funny. I was at it was a Comic-Con a few years ago, and this was a Comic-Con, but some people decided to show up as the Cenobites. And there was like children there, Iron Man outfits and stuff, and the looks on these kids' faces when they saw it just reminded me
Pinhead
of
and all the But that's important for children to see that sort of thing. It builds character.
Oh yeah.
Oh come on! I saw The Exorcist when I was like 5.
Yeah.
And it shows.
My parents were letting me listen to it. They had a thing called The Sounds from Hell, which is supposedly a true story that happened in Siberia.
Oh, the microphone drop. Yep.
And I was listening to that at like 8, and that was definitely an eye opener. But every parent's different.
Yeah, I had the mother that she loved horror movies, and the only person she had to watch it with most of the time was me. But I'm like 5 or 6 years old. Yeah. So she explained it all to me, and now what? I'm a film nerd and horror freak. So
that's good though.
So
so it paid off.
Take heed. If you let your kids watch horror movies, they turn into us.
Yeah, they turn into us.
Hey, it could be worse.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing.
Oh, absolutely. But what other films have you got in the gears? What are you thinking about?
There's another one called Dick Reno Monster Slayer, which is kind of comedy horror. And that is with Mr. Ron Chaney's going to play the Wolfman in that. And Eric Roberts will have another cameo in that. But that's kind of like, it's going to be like Ace Ventura versus meets Monster Squad. So it's a comedy. It's a comedy.
Eric Roberts is like in everything.
He's in everything, yeah. He's great to work with. I was a little nervous, but he's great to work with.
He seems to be a nice guy. I've never met him.
He's like a big, fun uncle. Like, he's just kind of just really funny and joking around. He knows everybody. So he tells you stories about everybody.
But he's been in everything.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I think he acts for $1 just so he can be in everything. It's like
he's reasonable, but he gives you what you pay for, and I was really lucky to work with him, and just the chance to even direct him was awesome. And I'll say this about him: I've worked on some sets where like a friend of yours starts to direct a scene, and you're like, I'm the director. Can I? But they'll start doing it in front of it. But he was really nice. He asked permission first, Eric Roberts of all people, if he could help one of the actresses out with some of her delivery. And I was like, you don't have to ask me. You've been nominated for Academy Award.
You're Eric Roberts. Go ahead.
Yeah, so he was really nice. He was really respectful. But so Dick Reno Monster Slayer, the Dead Rose trilogy. I have to finish the Dead Rose first, and that's the cool one. I think you guys would like a lot, about the young man who becomes a Jekyll and Hyde kind of character when he grabs this archaic dagger and infiltrates. He fights fire with fire, so he kind of takes on the world of the hardcore satanic cults, and with his own demon that he's kind of battling with. So that's we prefigure it in Realm of Shadows in the Tony Todd segment.
Cool. Mm-hmm. So what about looking back in the other direction in terms of stuff that's already out for people to be watching? Where can people find your stuff, and what should they be looking for?
Realm of Shadows will be the first one. We do have a ThunderKnight YouTube page. You can see trailers of upcoming projects. But once Realm of Shadows hits platforms, this will be our first one. That'll be kind of our inaugural sledgehammer.
The first feature. Are there shorts out there anywhere? Or,
on our YouTube channel for ThunderKnight Entertainment, you can see some of those, and definitely some of the music video ideas we've had, and a few trailers for some documentaries. But we do podcasts as well, but Realm of Shadows is kind of our inaugural,
the first big one.
Yeah.
Well, I think
cool.
Definitely, documentary films seem to help especially the horror directors. I mean, Friedkin. Or Romero. He was more of a commercial guy, but I mean, still, they were in the field, getting dirty, not in horror.
Well, their style, Romero's style, is definitely, you could tell it's some documentary references.
Or I'll go bad here, but I'll bring up two iceberg films here. Cannibal Holocaust. It's shot documentary style.
Yeah.
And a Serbian film. It had that same, which makes them feel real. I mean, it gives it that authenticity.
You want to go real authenticity, talk about Men Behind the Sun, where they had no budget, so they just filmed an autopsy for one of their scenes.
That's true. Yeah, you need a body for a scene? We'll go get one.
Something must have happened with those, though, that they still executed something really well.
Absolutely.
And, now the technology's gotten to a point where anyone can film something. It still comes down to the execution. And what happened.
Yeah. Technology has made the tools available, but the tools do not make the craftsman. You still have to know what you're doing.
You do.
But, God bless them for the technology, because now, if you do kind of know what you're doing, you don't need $100 million anymore.
That's true. And if you find the love of it, I mean, you look at Ed Wood, probably didn't make the best movies, but he loved what he was doing. And I guess that's my excuse for what will probably happen to me.
And we have more Lugosi thanks to him. So.
Yeah.
And Vampira. And Tor Johnson. And all the greats.
Criswell,
that's true.
Mohawk Bob, you'd like him. He does Criswell introductions on this podcast,
fun.
So he has some one-liners for you.
That sounds like fun.
I discovered a TV series not long ago. You reminded me about talking about fighting fire with fire. Have you seen...
What is it? South of Hell?
Yep.
With, I have not.
From American
Interesting.
It is a TV series.
Okay.
And it's her and her brother, and they're exorcists.
Wow.
And the reason that they're exorcists is she's possessed. And the demon that's possessing her wants to eat the other demons. So they go from possessed person to possessed person doing exorcisms to get the demon out of them for her demon.
Interesting.
And the demon shows up to her as a doppelganger of her. It is, just an amazing plot, and it was done reasonably well. You
mentioned a book you have. Do you mind if I mention it?
Yeah,
Malachi Martin. But one of the cases of possession in his book is about a pimp who was possessed, but his client, or one of the young women who worked for him, was also possessed. The interesting thing about it is the exorcism couldn't be successful until the pimp demon was exorcised, because that demon held sway over her. So it reminds me of that story we just mentioned, and that's based off a true story, the Malachi Martin case.
And
I need to read that book.
I don't have the book with me. It's in the other room. There is, the Annalise Michel. It's a psychological study of the case written by clergy. And the breakdown of it is just amazing. He's like, this girl wasn't possessed. He's like, everything was misdiagnosed, and he breaks it down. It's the most clinical read I've done in a long time, but it's phenomenal, and a look into how these different churches dealt with it completely different than each other. But I don't know, exorcism's always been interesting to me.
Oh, they're fascinating. It's at the crust of reality horror to me.
I want to, so does Bob. I want to go to a Catholic exorcism.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how to convince the bishop to let me film one or something.
They sometimes allow it. They actually prefer to have atheists. I don't know if you're atheist or not.
They want witnesses.
They prefer to have someone who's non-biased there.
Yeah.
Because
they tend to want doctors, I assume, most of the time, though.
Not always.
But I'm sure I can find some way of scamming my way into an exorcism.
I mean, I've been to more
scammer.
I've been more than my fair share of deliverance, which is still
it's like an exorcism, but it's not the same thing.
No.
It reminds me of I've forgotten her name, but some stand-up comedian was talking about whoops, I'm possessed by the devil. Let me go get a non-denominational worship leader.
Yeah.
No, you go to the Catholic Church.
There was a case of an exorcism that took place in Littleton in the 90s, according to our sources. One of them was The Exorcist. But one of the women in the room who was assisting the exorcism was a Catholic, but she had not been to confession. And that caused major problems because supposedly the demon
it knew,
and it would use that against them. So they say sometimes it's better to have someone who's kind of a non-biased.
Well, I mean that would be my
somebody like me that will admit to anything. Like, do you know what you did? Yeah, I did.
Yes, I know what I did. If you know what I did, we're going to have something to talk about.
Malachi Martin mentioned something very interesting, is even in people who do not believe in a person being possessed, that when they see one and they're in the room with the person who is, they know it. It's very palpable that everyone in the room knows that person is possessed. So it's a little more terrifying than any movie in that sense. But it's real.
There's that I can't sleep at night you want.
Well,
dealing with the demon. You won't be able to sleep that night because it scared you.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's real stuff.
No, I don't know.
We seem to have taken a strange turn somewhere on this episode.
Well, I mean, we're all just intrigued by the weird, the paranormal, the horror, and it all just kind of goes together. So.
One of the segments, I just wanted to relay this one too, in Realm of Shadows, is based off a true story about a young woman who had to eat her baby to get inside a coven. And it was relayed to us through a radio show that Peter Boyle put on in the 90s. We interviewed a woman about this.
Really?
So I made it a little artistic. I made it kind of like Black Swan, and it's a silent movie, and we obviously don't show the deed. However, that's a pretty terrifying true story. If you ever think of a woman having to do that. So these things do happen. It was a case out of the East Coast, but it's the taboo, the Faustian deal.
I wonder why Pete never told me that. I was on Pete's show for over a decade.
Oh, cool.
Every Halloween, wherever it was he went, he hauled us out with him. And we got to spend the night with Pete and his crew. And that was a lot of fun. I've spent a lot of haunted locations with them.
You may have been at this whole thing that when my dad related to it, because I did it, and it was an occult kind of con at McNichols Arena in the late 80s.
Oh, no.
But they would bring people on the show, and one woman came on the radio show and told him the story. And he was pretty taken back. So it was secondhand for me, and my dad kind of related to me. But I tried to recreate that in a radio, kind of a podcast kind of way in the film.
No, that's fun. And
it's interesting.
It's more fun if it's, as we say at the presentation, based on a true story.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll take off on another tangent here. My favorite based on a true story, The Blob.
The Blob.
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Nobody expects that one.
Yeah, we have a talk that's on, all the movies based on true stories.
Sure.
We'll go through, it's like, okay, Nightmare on Elm Street, Child's Play, The Exorcist,
Candyman,
all
Amityville.
Yeah, and then we get to, there's one more, The Blob.
True story. That's funny.
Well, it turns out it was a combination of this town got completely socked in by smoke from a Canadian wildfire. Go figure.
As South Park taught us, blame Canada.
Exactly. But it was so bad that during the daytime, at the baseball games, they had to turn on the lights because it was so dark outside, and it was freaking everybody out. And at the same time, the U.S. military decided to release this supposedly chemically neutral.
Yeah, not non-pathogenic.
Yeah.
It was a bacterial agent that was it's not going to make you sick, not going to kill you, but they wanted to study how it would transmit if a biological agent were introduced into a town. And recall, this was like in the 50s or so.
Yeah, early 50s.
Just after the war, when they had just figured out that Japan was just about to do that to us. So they had an interest in figuring out what to do.
And so they did, and the first report was from 2 police officers that saw it was basically a small parachute come down. And when they went to look at it, it had this mysterious purplish
slime,
glittery slime.
Wow.
And when they touched it, they said it almost vanished.
Huh.
And nobody seemed to have put 2 and 2 together until we dug into it. But yeah, it was part of a military experiment to see how the spread of biological agents would work.
Wow.
And, some guy a few years later went, oh, well, there was this town that was freaked out because of something that was overhead, the smoke and all this. And then they saw this purple thing. And next thing you know, you got the blob. So
it's kind of like the ooze that Stephen King touched in Creepshow, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, meteor shit.
Exactly.
Meteor shit. I'm growing.
I was thinking of the stuff.
The stuff.
Oh yeah, the stuff.
That's another one. Good stuff.
Anything Larry Cohen did, I'm kind of a fan
The
of.
stuff.
Can't get enough.
The sequel. Good stuff.
Well, that was kind of an interesting one, and I can't find it anywhere. We went to a screening of this stuff a year ago, 2 years ago. It was a director's cut. It had an additional 30 minutes in it.
Whoa.
It was amazing. I mean, I like the film to start with, but it was those 30 minutes made such a difference.
Interesting. I'll have to check that out. The director's cut of this stuff.
I wasn't at that screening, so I don't. I'm going to have to find that if I can.
I have to go off on a tangent just because Bob will get a laugh off of this at least. So, the guy that works for me at another job asked if he could borrow Terrifier 2. I said, yeah. He says, you got a Serbian film, right? Like, yeah. Are you sure you want it? He's like, yeah, I've heard so much about it that I've got to
check it out.
got to check it out. He comes back. I was like, I don't want to hear anything about psychological damage or anything because I warned you. He's like, that was messed up. Why would a director throw away his career like that? But after a little longer, he looks over at me and goes, you're on a list somewhere that just because you own that film. So I freaked him out. I'm like, yeah, I know. I had to check it out to you.
That's funny.
You're on the list now, too.
I'll have to get that.
Yeah, I also write. If there's a list,
Yeah.
good God, if somebody's monitoring my search history.
Oh, well, yeah, we went to a panel at the Fan Expo, and that was one of the things they were asking this panel of authors. They're like, so what's the strangest thing in your browser history? And
I will not admit it in
Yeah,
public,
yeah,
and
both-
I admit a lot of things in public.
Yeah, both of us were like, yeah, whatever you got, I'll top it. I mean, especially with the paranormal stuff. You get into or the conspiracy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you get the paranormal, the conspiracy, the horror, and the just being weird, the serial killers.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Plus, I just have so many weird hobbies that my purchase history even gets bizarre.
Yeah.
Like, I went to a store once and I picked up, what was it? Okay, a slasher movie that I wanted to watch.
I think duct tape and axe.
A maul, because I had some wood to split. and a really big tub of personal lubricant because I needed it for a magic prop. And I put those on a little conveyor belt and watched this poor girl as she tries to check me out.
That's funny.
I said that at the store the other day because we just had to pick up some miscellaneous stuff, and I put it on there. I'm like, wow, it looks like I was up really late drinking, and I just went to the store and had no idea what I was doing. But that's another fun thing to do. Go to the store, give yourself a budget, and just pick the strangest selection of things you possibly can and watch the people as you're in line.
The bigger the budget, the funnier it
That's
is.
where you get your collection.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
I need rope and an axe and some bleach. It's just
BTK would be proud.
exactly.
No, I'm just kidding.
It's over there.
Yeah, I've got a Christmas card he sent somebody.
Yeah, I've got I don't know, a page out of a book that he was writing in.
Wow.
Because we are strange people.
That was
We
so good.
are. If it's a weird serial killer thing, darn it, we have a piece of it somewhere.
That's cool.
And once again, we've taken a very strange turn.
Exactly.
I suppose the listeners are probably used to that by this point. This podcast is screwy.
Well, it's interesting. Even on a normal day job or something like that, my conversations go from "Hey, how's the weather?" to there's this serial killer that used to eat children. Wow.
It's kind of in the back of our brains all the time.
Yeah, that's when the boss walks in.
You're like, no, maybe not.
So we'll do it one more time just so people know where are all of the places that people can find your stuff and things.
And stay in touch and keep track of what you're up to.
Please stay in touch. You can go to the YouTube channel for ThunderKnight Entertainment. That's our production company. And the first film, which is called Realm of Shadows, which is a feature, will be hitting platforms anytime. So I'm kind of anxious for that to hit.
Yep.
And then it's hopefully off to the races from there.
Let us know when it does, and we'll push it out on the podcast stuff too.
It'll get the basic 7, but we're hoping some nice larger ones too. So
Cool. I guess we'll call it a night.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
guys.
whenever you got something new coming out, let us know. We'll drag you back
We'd
over and
love to come over and
talk horror stuff.
There's a wealth of information in here. Just looking around. I love it.
Have too much fun. All right, well.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
And
No problem.
We'll do something with the next show sometime. Actually, our next show
will probably be the one that we just recorded earlier because we sort of flipping them around.
So we've got at least one in the can.
And more good stuff to come.
Oh, absolutely. Lots of fun stuff.
So stay tuned.
Cool. Well, we're out.
Look forward to it.
Take care, y'all.